President Allende, thanks for joining us. Now, you won the 1970 Chilean presidential election democratically through the ballot box, and 3 years later, the military bombed your palace, overthrew your government, and installed a dictatorship that lasted 17 years. You refused to leave. You died in La Moneda. So let me start with a question that matters most. You did everything right, you played by the rules, you won the election, and they destroyed you anyway. What does that teach us about the limits of democracy when the powerful decide they'd rather not have one?
It teaches us, my friend, that democracy is not merely a set of rules. It is a constant struggle for justice, for dignity. I believed in the Chilean road to socialism, a path through the ballot box, respecting our institutions. But the powerful, those whose privileges were threatened, they have no respect for the democratic process. External pressures, economic sabotage, and the betrayal of internal forces, they conspired to destroy what we were building. It shows us that the defense of democracy requires constant vigilance and conviction. I said that history is ours, and people make history. That truth remains, even when treason prevails in the moment.
The United States helped overthrow you. Nixon told the CIA director to make the economy scream. They funded opposition media. They supported the trucker strikes. They backed the military. This is documented. The church committee laid it all out. You were overthrown not because you failed, but because your success threatened American corporate interests, specifically the copper companies. Now, here's the bitter irony. That same United States is watching its own democracy erode from the inside. No CIA coup needed. The authoritarianism is coming through the elected government itself. You were the target of American intervention. What's it like watching the country that destroyed your democracy start to lose its own?
It is a bitter contemplation, truly. We sought to build a different path, here in Chile, a democratic socialism, respecting the institutions. But as you say, the powerful will not accept a result that threatens their dominance. The economic warfare, the sabotage, the congressional obstruction. It was a slow strangulation of democracy. And now to see the great power of the North facing similar demons from within, you say. It confirms that the threats to democratic ideals are universal. The powerful do not respect ballots when their interests are challenged. History repeats, first as tragedy, then as a reminder.
So, before the coup, the institutions turned on you. The opposition controlled Congress. They blocked your legislation. They impeached cabinet ministers. They passed resolutions declaring your government unconstitutional. The judiciary sided with the opposition. The comptroller general refused to register your decrees. The institutions you respected, the ones you played by the rules of, were weaponized against you. Now, in America, right now, the institutions are being used in the opposite direction, weaponized by the executive. The DOJ, the Department of Justice, has been purged of prosecutors who investigated January 6th. FBI agents who worked those cases have been targeted. Federal judges are publicly attacked. The press is sued, banned, arrested. You watched institutions betray a democracy from one direction. What do you see happening from the other?
It is true, mi compadre. In my time, the bourgeoisie and their allies, supported by external powers, utilized the very institutions I swore to protect, like the Congress and the judiciary, to suffocate our democratic experiment. It was a slow strangulation, disguised as constitutionalité. The irony is a harsh lesson. Now you describe a different path to democratic decay, where the executive itself dismantles the checks and balances, silencing dissent and undermining the rule of law. It is a profound tragedy, a betrayal of the very foundation of popular sovereignty. The form may differ, but the outcome is the same, the erosion of the people's power. History, as I said, is a relentless teacher. We must be vigilant, always.
Pinochet wrote a constitution in 1980 under military rule specifically designed to lock in his economic policies and limit what future democratic governments could change. He built the cage and then let people vote inside of it. In America, the federal judiciary has been stacked with ideologically aligned judges. The Supreme Court has a 6-3 conservative majority. Gerrymandering has locked in House majorities. Voter suppression laws are being passed state by state. The SAVE Act would require documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote, blocking millions of eligible voters. You experienced a constitution designed to make democracy permanent theater. Is that what's being built here?
It is a most painful comparison, but one that resonates deeply with my experience. Pinochet's 1980 constitution was precisely a cage constructed to neutralize the democratic path, to protect the interests of those who feared social change. It was the legal framework for the dictatorship that destroyed my government. You point to the judiciary, gerrymandering, voter suppression. These are insidious mechanisms, not the thunder of bombs on La Moneda, but a slow asphyxiation of democratic will. In Chile, the institutions were weaponized against me, the judiciary siding with the powerful, the parliament obstructing every progressive reform. When you design the system to protect concentrated wealth and power, making the vote a mere formality, then see, it becomes a theater. The powerful build their cage, believing they can trap the will of the people within it. But I have faith in history. Other men and women will overcome this dark and bitter moment. The struggle for democracy is eternal, and the people ultimately make history.
Last question, President Allende. On September 11th, 1973, as the bombs were falling on La Moneda, you gave your final radio address. You said, "History is ours and people make history." You said, "Other men will overcome this dark and bitter moment when treason seeks to prevail." You refused to leave. You died in the building. My question is, and I ask it with respect, was it worth it? Did staying change anything? And what would you say to Americans who are watching their institutions erode and wondering whether fighting for democracy is still worth the cost?
A heartfelt question. You ask if it vale la pena, if it was worth it. For a physician, for a man who dedicated his life to the people, there is no question. To abandon La Moneda in the face of the golpe, the coup, would have been to betray the trust the people gave me. I died defending democracy, the legitimate path we forged, the Chilean road to socialism. That was always worth it. You see in your own country the same dynamics. The powerful do not accept outcomes that threaten their interests. Economic warfare, institutional sabotage, the weaponization of democratic institutions to destroy them. This is not new, compañeros. I saw it here. But the fight must continue. Democracy is not a final state. It is a constant struggle. My sacrifice was not in vain if it reminds you of the fragility and the necessity of defense. History is ours, I said, because the ultimate power rests with the people, not with the bombs or the traitors. Do not lose hope, but be vigilant.